We are ready to get started, and I want to introduce to you my fantastic colleague who is part of the college here at Brown University. And their name is Shantae Montgomery, PhD, who is the Associate Dean of the college for the class year advising. And she has a couple of students with her here as well today, who she'll introduce to you. But for now, Shantae, why don't you take it away and get us started? Thank you.
Thank you, Mikhail. Hello, everyone who's with us today. Again, my name is Shantae Montgomery, and I'm the Associate Dean of the College for Class Year Advising. I'm joined today by two of our amazing Meiklejohn leaders, Avery Liu, who is class of 2026, and Sydney Stovall, who is class of 2025. They're going to be sharing some important information with us along with myself today. And so I'll turn it over to Sydney, who's going to start our presentation.
Great, thank you, Dean Montgomery. Okay, do you all see my slides? Perfect. All right, thank you, Dean Montgomery and Mikhail. Hello, first year friends and families. Wherever you are in the world, we want to extend our warmest welcome to you on behalf of members and leaders of Brown's first year advising team. We are so excited you have decided to join us today at Brown's first year advising network webinar. We hope our time together will provide you and your student with a bit more clarity and confidence relating to the resources afforded to you as a new member of the Brown community. So a little agenda for today. We will begin with an overall introduction to the first year advising network at Brown, transition to an overview of advising day and pre-registration for first years, and end with a few tips and tricks from fellow students on how to best navigate first year advising at Brown. But before we begin, let's first introduce ourselves. So as representatives of the Meiklejohn leadership team, Avery and I work with undergraduate students and college deans such as Dean Montgomery to organize and execute the Meiklejohn Peer Advising Program. Joining us today are Dean Shantae Montgomery and Mikhail St. Germain. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, feel free to ask in the chat feature on Zoom. One of us will be more than willing to answer your questions to the best of our abilities. And without further ado, let's dive right in.
All right, so to begin this webinar, we would like to provide you with an overview of Brown's first year advising network. Before stepping foot onto campus, every first year student gets placed in a primary advisory group consisting of approximately 5 to 6 other first year students, a Meiklejohn peer advisor or a MIC, as you'll learn we typically call them, an exploratory faculty advisor. This advising network allows first years to not only begin developing a community of other first year students, but also receive a faculty and student perspective on their transition to college. Through advisory group meals, social events, and one-on-one check-in meetings throughout the academic year, your Students Advising Network offers first year and transfer students a close-knit community throughout their first year at Brown. Advising at Brown is based in part upon holistic, culturally inclusive, and learning-centered strategies that help to inform and establish our student-centered and student-directed approach to learning at Brown. At this university, we truly believe that students are the architects of their own education. This means that students are encouraged to utilize Brown's open curriculum in a way that suits their interests and aspirations. Doing this, however, does not always come naturally. The First Year Advising Network is in place to aid and support students as they explore and make meaning out of the open curriculum. So in this way, the advising triad works in part because of our shared desire to help incoming students to explore their passions and unique interests through Brown's curriculum. Your Students Exploratory Academic Advisor and Meiklejohn Peer Advisor act as thought partners, guides, and mentors, aiding our first year explorers through the constellation of opportunities and resources at this university. As you may know, the open curriculum is what separates Brown from many other universities. Students who matriculate to Brown are offered the academic freedom to explore the curriculum as much or as little as they desire. For these reasons, we do not focus on matching students with advisors or mix in areas of their stated interests. Those interests may shift throughout a student's time at Brown. So we really focus on connecting students with a network of people who can guide them through exploring their stated and sometimes unstated interests. Now, there are a few important aspects of the advising group we would like to mention. First, while Meiklejohn peer advisors work uniquely with students in their first 2 semesters at Brown, the student and exploratory faculty advisor pairing remains intact throughout a student's sophomore year until they declare a concentration and are matched with a concentration advisor in their academic field. Sophomore students who still wish to seek peer advising may benefit from the Matched Advising Program for Sophomore Programs, or MAPS for short. This program is sponsored by the Curricular Resource Center, or CRC. Second, a student's exploratory faculty advisor in Meiklejohn might concentrate in academic disciplines different from the advisee. These pairings are intentional and serve to encourage academic exploration inherent to the open curriculum. With this being said, certain concentrations such as math and engineering and certain pre-professional programs such as the Program in Liberal Medical Education, or PLEME for short, are more likely to design their first-year advising group with concentration uniformity in mind. The Meiklejohn Peer Advising Network is vast, meaning if, for whatever reason, a first year cannot receive help from their personal Meiklejohn, there are a host of other MIC leaders, or any other individuals who can help them. Additionally, DUG leaders, or Department Undergraduate Group leaders, offer fantastic peer advising resources to all students who have concentration-specific questions. Third, a Meiklejohn is not just an academic advisor. Meiklejohns provide holistic support to incoming students through social, emotional, physical, and extracurricular guidance. Fourth, incoming students should receive their advisor pairings in mid-August. While the Meiklejohn and faculty advising partners should reach out to incoming students to introduce themselves, incoming students can certainly reach out to their advisors via email with any questions or comments ahead of advising day. We also encourage students to complete their introduction letter via the Canvas course first year at Brown. This is a personalized way to let your advising network know a bit more about you before the semester begins. In addition to your Meiklejohn exploratory faculty advisor, many deans within the college work to assist first years with academic and personal questions. While first year students can seek assistance through most deans, regardless of their title, for more targeted expertise, first year students can schedule an appointment with an academic dean, like myself. While we have highlighted 2 specific deans, Dean Amari Boyd and Dean Timothy Shiner, who are part of the class year advising team and my colleagues here in the college, please note that all academic deans within the college can provide undergraduates with the support necessary to aid them in their personal, academic, and professional advancement. Beyond the Meiklejohn Exploratory Faculty Advisor and college deans, Brown offers a ton of additional advising resources applicable to first years. Some include extracurricular resources and student groups, such as academic coaching, academic tutors, and identity-based peer advising. The First Year at Brown Canvas the First Year at Brown Canvas page, which is a resource on the Canvas website designed to aid new students in their academic transition to Brown. And social media platforms that advertise student-related programming. I'll turn it over to Avery to talk about Advising Day.
Thank you so much, Dean Montgomery. Now let's talk about Advising Day. Advising Day, which is a part of freshman orientation, is on Friday, August 30th. Advising Day is a big day. It is the first day that first years meet their Meiklejohn and assigned exploratory faculty advisor in person. On this day, first years will be assigned to meet during either a morning advising block, which is from 9 to 12 p.m., or an afternoon advising block, which is from 12:30 to 3:30 p.m. In this meeting, first years should expect to talk through potential course options on courses at Brown, or CAB for short. It's a good idea to come to this meeting with 4 to 5 potential courses in mind. This meeting is also the place in which first years can share any and all academic and extracurricular interests with their advisor and MIC. During this meeting, the faculty advisor will give first years their registration PIN, which will allow them to register for courses at 4 p.m. later that day. During registration, MICs will be stationed at 2 of the university's libraries, the Sciences Library, or the SciLi, and the Rockefeller Library, or the ROC, and a few other places on campus. They will be able to help as questions arise while first years are registering for these classes. However, if you don't get into the courses you want or need during pre-registration, please don't stress. You will be able to edit your schedule during shopping period, which is the first 2 weeks of the semester in which all students can attend any course without official registration to try out or shop a desired course. A Meiklejohn's role is not just to be an academic guide, but also a socio-emotional one as well. My personal favorite part of advising day is what happens actually after course pre-registration. Meiklejohns get dinner with the 5 to 6 first years in their advising group and then go to an ice cream social where first years can meet other classmates and fellow Meiklejohns.
Thank you so much, Avery. Finally, we want to provide you all with a few tips and tricks to ensure you feel prepared, comfortable, and confident in your navigation of first-year advising at Brown. So, tip number 1, in preparation for advising day, we encourage you to start pre-registration course selection sometime over the summer before you step foot onto campus. As fall 2024 courses are already published on CAB, which is Courses at Brown or Brown's course registration website, incoming students can start perusing course offerings as soon as possible. We recommend all first years come to advising day with at least 4 to 5 courses in their primary or secondary cart in CAB. While course selection can be overwhelming for some, we recommend choosing courses that balance size, so big lecture versus small seminar, subjects such as STEM or humanities, requirements such as a concentration requirement or an elective, and grade limitation such as a first-year seminar. Linked onto CAB, the Critical Review, Brown's student-run course review publication, provides demographical data, enrollment statistics, and student reviews of many courses offered at Brown. Accessible via a Brown account, this online resource can help students obtain an insider's guide on courses at Brown. And of course, your Meiklejohn and exploratory faculty advisor are great people to reach out to if you have any questions or need advice. And following up on the previous tip, we like to advise first years to have a few backup courses in addition to their core 4 to 5, just in case they do not get into their top choices. Once advising day rolls around and you find that you did not get into one of your top choices, please do not fear. Shopping period, which is a period during the first 2 weeks of the semester, provides a lot of flexibility with course enrollment, so there's still a chance you'll get into the course eventually. And tip number 3, a source of excitement for some and a source of stress for others, the open curriculum and its best practices likely consume the minds of many of you. While navigation of open curriculum is really a personal endeavor and inevitably entails trial and error, we have a few tips based on our personal experiences as students. So tip number 1, the open curriculum is really all about balance. Some concentrations provide a lot more flexibility with less than 10 requirements, while others have more than 20 requirements. If you have an intended concentration, keep in mind that the types and amounts of requirements may differ. While this might impact your ability to take electives, under no circumstances should it inhibit your ability to take full advantage of the open curriculum. And number 2, another note on the flexibility of the open curriculum, please keep in mind that some courses, mainly language courses or certain upper level courses, require prerequisites. First years who wish to take a certain course can work with their advisors to map out future course schedules necessary to achieve their desired goal. Beyond concentration requirements and prerequisites, yes, the open curriculum allows you to take any class you want with any grade declaration, regardless of level designation and subject. And finally, number 3, upper class students, so sophomores, juniors, and seniors, often provide indispensable knowledge to incoming students. Sometimes it's in a student's best interest to join a club or enroll in a class with an intimate environment that facilitates cross-grade interaction. Regardless of the class or club, these connections can sometimes inform a student's future trajectory. And finally, tip number 4. This tip is intended specifically for families and caregivers of first-year students. As current students, Avery and I, who have navigated Brown's academic structure, we strongly advise you to let your student guide their own academic career as early as possible. While it might feel tempting to influence your student's academic choices, the best way you can ensure your student takes full advantage of the open curriculum is through minimal control over their academic freedom. As your student prepares for pre-registration, encourage them to engage in some individual reflection and research through the First Year at Brown Canvas page prior to their on-campus arrival. Upon arrival, your student will have access to a host of advising resources trained to aid them in their academic and extracurricular journey at Brown. So this concludes our presentation. We thank you all so much for your attention and patience. In the remaining few minutes of this webinar, we will now transition into any remaining questions. Feel free to drop questions in the chat feature, and one of us will answer to the best of our ability. So I'll hand this back over to Mikkel.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dean Montgomery and Sydney and Avery. That was fantastic. But yes, we do have some questions that have come in. So let's go through a few of those. And I also have some that came in with the registration. So we'll try and cover as much as we can. But folks, please feel free to send your questions through. I think this was covered a little bit in your presentation, but could you talk a little bit about the exploratory advisor? Is this connected to the student's subject or potential major, or can it be different? And I guess, Dean Montgomery, I'll start with you on that one.
So in some instances, the exploratory advisor is connected with the student's stated academic interest. Those programs that typically do that are the engineering program and math. So those faculty, particularly in the engineering department, know that the course requirements are pretty hefty for that concentration. And so if a student is intending to declare an engineering concentration in their sophomore year, then they need to start those courses early. Outside of those departments, there are programs that do have some intentional matching with advisors that I'm actually working on right now to make certain that those students are matched with advisors who are in those particular programs or subjects. So Pliny is one particular program that is very focused on matching their students with other Pliny faculty. Outside of those designations, the vast majority of incoming first-year students, be it incoming freshmen first-year students or first-year transfer students, are assigned to an exploratory advisor. The reason that we do that is because a student may apply to Brown at any particular time in high school, and before they matriculate to Brown, they have an idea of what it is that they'd be interested in academically. And then they come to Brown and are introduced to the open curriculum and a vast array of experiences, opportunities, and resources. And those things may change, or in some instances, they stay the same. And so since we do not require students to declare concentration until the second semester of their sophomore year, we want to really focus, especially in that first year, on exploration. And so we assign students to exploratory advisors who can help to guide that exploration, because sometimes it's a bit tricky. Sometimes it's also a bit nerve-wracking and anxiety-producing to have academic freedom in this way that students haven't had in the past. And so having that guide of someone who is there to help them explore, who isn't necessarily connected to a concentration, is why we do what we do. However, there's a constellation of support and resources. And so students are encouraged to speak with concentration advisors, to speak with other students, to speak with department undergraduates or the DUG program, students in the DUG program, who can help to talk about concentration-specific things before a student actually declares in their sophomore year. And so we encourage those conversations and exploration, but we don't necessarily do that intentional matching. Those students are matched with a concentration advisor who is a concentration expert, a topic expert in their sophomore year.
Thank you. That was really helpful. And you did mention transfer students. We had a question come in about that. Can you talk about this process for transfer students?
Yes, so transfer students in their first year are also assigned exploratory advisor, sorry for the reasons that I mentioned. But depending upon where a student is in their transfer process, if you're coming in having already amassed some credits and you're coming into perhaps your second or third semester, your time with your exploratory advisor may be shorter than other first year students. And so we still have some opportunity to connect you with a Meiklejohn and a exploratory advisor to help sort of onboard you in so many words to Brown and the open curriculum. But you may be declaring your concentration a bit earlier in your second semester of your sophomore year, maybe your second semester at Brown. And so you may have a briefer exchange with that network of support.
Great, thank you. I'm going to give you a break and move to the students for a little bit. We've had a couple of questions coming in about the shopping period, which I know both of you have gone through multiple times. So I figure I'd direct these to you. One of them is about if you get 2 weeks to try out classes, and then you decide to join other classes, do you miss out on 2 weeks of work? Are you behind in your class? I'll start with you, Avery, and then bring in you, Sydney.
So it definitely can be overwhelming shopping more than what you would take as a typical course load. So that's 4 classes. But I haven't found it to be too overwhelming. Typically you try to keep up with your work. So you're going to those extra classes along with, I guess, those 4 typical course load classes. And then you're doing the work for all those classes, which can get overwhelming. But I found the easiest strategy is you kind of know if you're interested in a class after at least shopping it once or twice. So typically students are not really shopping a class the whole 2 weeks unless they know for sure they really want to get into that class and they just haven't been spots in registration available. And then that's when you would typically attend for that full 2 weeks to show your commitment and continue to keep up with that workload. And typically that shouldn't really be more than 1 extra class on your schedule. The other thing that I would say is professors they are very understanding of shopping period. They understand that people may be coming in that haven't been registered or are having a lot on their plate, especially as incoming first years. It's hard to get adjusted to the college course load or college workload. And so professors I found are super accommodating about that. They're super understanding about late work during shopping period, and they don't really assign that many assignments that are for grades. Typically it's just assignments so you can kind of get used to what is the typical assignment that would be assigned later in the semester for that class. I think they try to assign at least 1 assignment so you can kind of get the feel of the work. But if someone is struggling to keep up with that workload, professors are super accommodating during shopping period.
That's great to know. And Sydney, if you could add your 2 cents, and also we had a question related to this that asked, so if there's a class that is already on your schedule, but you think you might want to drop it during shopping period, should you still be going to it no matter what?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just reiterate everything that Avery said. I think shopping period, like professors are very, very cognizant of the intricacies, the potential stresses of shopping period. So they really are intentional about not really assigning too much work to kind of allow students to have that academic flexibility during shopping period. To answer the second question, I would say if you're shopping a class that you think you might drop, some students shop a class for the 2-week period, even though they know they're going to drop the class just because they want to take like a class super outside of their concentration for fun for 2 weeks, which is totally encouraged within the open curriculum. I would say it's really up to you and your own schedule. If you think you might have a busier course schedule this semester, you might want to consider not shopping a course that you know you're going to drop, just to make sure you're getting a good head start on your potentially busy semester for the upcoming weeks.
And about how many classes per semester do you recommend students take?
I would say I think the recommendation is 4, so you could take either 3 to 5 classes a semester. I usually advise my students, especially my first year students, to take 4 classes. I think 5 classes can sometimes be a bit too much during your first semester at Brown. 3 courses, you're not really getting a good feel of what a typical semester course work is like. So I think 4 classes, especially for incoming students, is my recommendation in terms of course selection.
And typically, how many students are there per advisor?
I believe there is usually 5 to 6. I think it depends on, again, like sometimes for plebe students, the groups might be a bit bigger, I believe, but we usually try to have 5 to 6 first year students per advisory group.
Okay, thank you. I'll switch over to Avery, because Avery, you were talking about the orientation related experiences. Can you talk about when during that time frame they're meeting in person with their advisor?
So are you talking about advising day?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
we went through it a little bit, but I think we still have some questions on that.
yeah, no, for sure. So after you receive your exploratory advisor and your Meiklejohn in around mid-August, you'll be contacted by that exploratory advisor and Meiklejohn, and they'll let you know the location of where to go for advising day, which is a full day set aside for orientation, and they'll let you know your assigned time slot. So that time slot is a 3-hour time slot. And within that 3-hour time slot, you'll do a big group meeting. So you can meet with your exploratory faculty advisor and your Meiklejohn and all the other first years in your advising group to kind of get an introduction into Brown's advising network and get settled in. And then after that, depending on what the exploratory advisor typically wants to do, you'll meet individually with either both your exploratory and faculty advisor and Meiklejohn at the same time, or your exploratory faculty advisor and Meiklejohn separately as an individual. And then during that process, they will kind of talk you through how to register for classes, what classes you're thinking of taking, and basically anything you want to talk about. We also really like to talk about how students are settling in with just kind of college orientation as well. And you'll get kind of your classes ready for you to register at 4 p.m. And then at 4 p.m., you'll meet with your Meiklejohn in a campus space to register with your Meiklejohn and the rest of the students in your advising group. And that's pre-registration. And after pre-registration, you go to dinner and have an ice cream social and just kind of the details that were in the presentation.
So there's a lot of interaction and times where they are together. All right, so yes, Dean Montgomery.
In addition to your advisors reaching out to you, you'll also be receiving a communication from Advising at Brown. That communication will include information about your advisor, your advising day schedule as well. So you'll be getting some multiple communications from different places just to make certain that we're touching all of those bases. In addition to that email that you'll receive when you log into Ask, which is the advising sidekick, you will see your advising orientation program schedule. And that schedule will be available to you throughout the orientation period and provides you with some further details and information about those programs that Avery was just sharing with you, some logistical and informative information about that as well.
Great. And Dean Montgomery, we had a question about why is it called a Meiklejohn?
I'll let the Meiklejohns answer that.
Okay. All right, Meiklejohns.
So I believe it is called Meiklejohn because I think there's a more detailed explanation on the Meiklejohn website. So I'd highly consider people to check that out if you're interested. But Alexander Meiklejohn, I believe, was a professor at Brown, and I think a professor or a dean or both, and he really kind of inspired students, inspired a love for peer advising, inspired a love for just like academic and extracurricular advising to integrate first year students into the Brown, community. And as a result of that, just to kind of honor his legacy at Brown, the peer advising, first year peer advising network is considered the Meiklejohn peer advising program.
Awesome. This really isn't Jeopardy, but I think that was worthy of a couple of dollars there. So, another question about shopping period again. So if a student is shopping a course, how do they find out they've actually been accepted into the class? Sydney, you're shaking your head. Do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, I can answer it. So there only are a few select classes where you kind of have to like apply to join the class. Sometimes those classes are smaller seminars where the professor or the department intentionally tries to be intentional and to kind of limit its intake of students for a specific course. But usually, if you meet the prerequisites, if you meet the course level like distribution, you can just register for the course on CAB. And also if there are enough spaces for you to register for the course, you could just register for the course into CAB and then you're in the course. I also recommend my students, if they're interested in shopping a course and they haven't actually registered for it yet, just to email the teacher, maybe meet with the teacher after the course, kind of explain their situation. I'm shopping the course, but I think I'm interested. This is especially really helpful if the course is capped. So if the course has a maximum enrollment limitation, and you're not sure if you're going to get into the course, it's always a great idea for students to email the professor, talk with the professor, see if there's a wait list that the student can potentially join to kind of facilitate their admission into the course.
Great, thank you.
And
Go
just
ahead,
to
Avery.
add on to that really quickly, I just wanted to make it clear that emailing professors can also be super intimidating for first years, and your Meiklejohn should know that. So hopefully your Meiklejohn is always receptive to showing you how to write an email to a professor or writing that email with you. That's one of the main things that we try to encourage Meiklejohns to help first years with, especially after the stress of pre-registration and not getting into those classes.
Thank you. Great point. Dean Montgomery, we've had a few questions about foreign language placement and how does a student choose a foreign language class? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I'm going to share with you all the link to the placement exam website. The reason I'm doing that is because we strongly encourage, if there is placement exam questions that you have about foreign language requirements, we strongly encourage that you reach out to that department who can provide you with some specific responses to those questions. Some of them have different things that they're looking for. And so it would be within your best interest probably just to reach out and talk with someone who's an expert on the placement exam process.
Great. And a couple of questions about the opportunity to graduate early. If a student completes their requirements prior to the 8 semesters, are they able to graduate early?
That is a really great question, and that's a question that I've been receiving with some frequency. So I will say this, Brown has 4 degree requirements, and I'll go through those as succinctly as possible. So the first degree requirement is that students complete 32 enrollment units. That is 4 enrollment units over 8 semesters. When we say enrollment units, we mean tuition units. Tuition is related to dollars. And so a student has to have 8 semesters of full-time enrollment at Brown as the first degree completion requirement. The second degree completion requirement is that each student has to complete 30 course credits. So as Sydney was sharing, students can take anywhere from 3 to 5 credits per semester. Students typically take 4 credits each semester. So if you do the math, that's 4 course credits over 8 semesters, that's 32. So students have a cushion. That's where that 3 comes in. So maybe 1 semester in their first 4 semesters at Brown and 1 semester in their second 4 semesters at Brown, a student chooses to take 3. So then that gets us to 30. So you have a cushion. So there's that. So the number 1 is 32 enrollment units. Number 2 is 30 course credits. Number 3 is you have to complete 2 writing requirements at Brown. That is to show the depth and breadth of understanding of writing and communication. So we're looking for those 2 writing requirements to be completed in the first 4 semesters, 1 in the first 4 semesters and the other in the last 4 semesters. Now, if you look on CAP or courses at Brown, you'll see that there are a lot of different types of courses that are writing designated. So a student would have to complete that writing requirement in a writing designated course. And so I do want to reiterate, though, that those 2 requirements have to happen within the first 4 semesters and the last 4 semesters in order for them to count towards degree completion. That's the third. And the fourth is that you have to complete 1 concentration. So those concentrations, as the mix we're sharing, some of them have different credit requirements depending upon what you may choose. So you have to complete all 4 of those requirements in order to complete your degree. So that would mean, even if you completed those last 3 that I shared, if you haven't completed your 8 semesters of full-time enrollment, you would not be able to graduate on time. Now, sometimes students may have advanced standing or something like that. Now we're getting into some technical issues or personalized things where it would be beneficial for a student to meet with an academic dean. And I believe that Mikhail shared that link with you all if you're interested in having a chat about that further. But that is the typical and most often way that a student completes a degree here at Brown.
Yeah, and just like with all our webinars, if you have a very specific circumstance, I would suggest contacting the deans like Dean Montgomery mentioned, or you can always email me at family@brown.edu and I can get your email to the correct place. But yeah, we can't get too in the weeds with the specific circumstances. We had some questions about the enrolling in classes on April 30th. And is it a first come, first serve system, or is it a lottery, or, is there a lot of anxiety around that 4 p.m. on August 30th time when it opens up? Let's see, let's start with Avery.
Yeah, so there's definitely, I remember I was a freshman super nervous about pre-registration. So I totally understand that feeling. The way it works is that all seniors, juniors, and sophomores have already pre-registered for courses, which is why some freshmen may not be able to register for certain courses that they're interested in taking or shopping. But all freshmen and incoming first years register at the exact same time at that 4 p.m. And it can get a little chaotic. However, I would just like to stress that shopping period is a really, really great way to get into classes that you may not get during pre-registration. I ended up registering for, I think, 3 or 4 classes that I do not think I'm going to take, and I think I'm going to shop a bunch of other classes that I will end up taking. So totally normal, even for upperclassmen. I'm going to be a junior, so that's just something to keep in mind. It definitely is chaotic, but what we're trying to do is have the Meiklejohn there to be able to guide those 4 to 5 freshmen. And what I found is it's really nice to be kind of registering for classes with those other people in your Meiklejohn advising group, because they're all going through the same thing and they're all stressed or nervous about registration as well. I don't know if you want to add on, Sydney.
Yeah, I can just add a few things. I think firstly, it is very true that sophomores, juniors, and seniors register for courses before freshmen, so that before first year. So that means there may be some courses in CAB that are filled, that have reached full enrollment. But I highly encourage first years to still shop the course, still email the professor, still attend the first course, express your interest, because you never know, shopping period brings a lot of fluidity. So there's still a really good chance you'll get into the course, or there's still a chance you'll get into the course. I will also say, yeah, reiterate that a lot of Meiklejohns are in the libraries to assist with pre-registration. It definitely can be stressful having like your entire grade in the library with you. When it hits 4 o'clock, there's like a silence that hits the library. People are just like locked in trying to register. But I think if you come to pre-registration with 4 to 5 courses and backup courses in mind, it really does ease the stress of registration.
Great, thank you. On a similar note, when you are thinking about shopping a couple different classes, can you shop ones that take place at the exact same time? Is that allowed in the registration system?
Not so. It is. You cannot register for 2 courses that meet at the same time. But if you want to shop 2 courses that meet at the same time, technically you can. I know some students have done this. I've done this myself. You can leave a course halfway through and then go to another course halfway, like towards the second half of the meeting. Students do that all the time. It's really likely that you'll see students kind of like walking in and out of courses during shopping period. So that's very common. Obviously just be respectful of the course. Make sure you're not like making a lot of noise when you're like leaving the course. And
I would say maybe Dean Montgomery, you can talk a little bit about like this does sound like a very foreign concept for people who may have, as parents may have gone through a more direct route, not an open curriculum. How do you see the open curriculum as, how do you see these outcomes with students after they've gone through this process, and how that is a benefit to them?
Are you asking about how students have gone through the process of the open curriculum?
Yeah, or how the open curriculum, the whole philosophy behind it, why we go through this whole process of the chaos of shopping and dropping within the first 2 weeks.
I think what's interesting to me about the open curriculum is that it came about from students themselves. So as a response to some of the political and social things that were happening in the 1960s and wanting to be able to have sort of like a social justice lens applied to students' choice and students' academic freedom, which is the term that we keep using. Brown University students protested over the course of a few days. And out of that protest and conversation with faculty and administrators, the new curriculum or open curriculum was birthed. And I think that's really at the heart and the spirit of Brown is that a lot of what happens at Brown is student-centered and student-directed. A lot of the amazing things that are happening on this campus are because students came together and spoke about their experience and spoke to some of the policies and processes that are happening here. And so when I began myself here, not as a student, but as, staff administration at Brown, one of the ways the open curriculum was explained to me that has really stuck with me is that some individuals sort of approach the open curriculum as, I have to do all of these things. There's all of these opportunities available to me, and I have to be doing this, and I have to try this, and I have to try that. And they want to take in the whole ocean. And what's beautiful about the open curriculum is, no, you don't. You don't have to do anything. You have the choice to do as much or as little as you want. You can come here and say, I want to concentrate in A and take courses in A, or you can come here and say, I want to concentrate in B, but I'm really interested in looking at A, or you can do none of that. You can do as much or as little as is meaningful for you. And I think that's what differs from experiences that I've had with students at other universities where there was this core general education requirement and students had to spend their first 2 years taking courses that may or may not have been interesting to them, that may or may not have been meaningful to them in their future career pathways and choices, but they were sort of forced to sort of do this very cookie cutter sort of experience. And here, because of the open curriculum, there isn't that requirement. But freedom, a lot of times is scary and requires not this kind of loosey-goosey approach, but sometimes we have to be intentional and thoughtful. And I think that's where Meiklejohns and exploratory advisors come in as thought partners to help you to make sense out of this freedom that you have, particularly coming out of K through 12, coming from home, coming from whichever environment students are coming from before they come to Brown. We may not have had access to the type of academic freedom that is presented here at the university. And so as students go through, I think you've heard from the Meiklejohns who are going through the process currently and who are mentoring students who are going through the process currently, that the experience is in part what you make of it and in part about the connections that you make with the amazing array of individuals that you'll meet here in a classroom or outside of it. And so I hope that's the takeaway. Yeah,
that's fantastic. I see Sydney and Avery, you shaking your heads too. Can you expand on that, how you deal with that level of choice? Sydney, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely can be overwhelming, but I think it in life, I mean, beyond just undergraduate life, like you're going to be overwhelmed, you're going to be inundated with choices in life. So I think the amazing thing about a Brown education is that it's exposing you to the stresses of how to make choices and the potential kind of like euphoria you feel after you make a choice and after you potentially make like a choice that didn't really work so well, but like how to navigate making that choice and what you learn from that. It's all about growth, and I think the earlier you can kind of learn how to navigate that growth that is inherent to choice making is just an amazing part of Brown education. And I will say, taking advantage of Brown's advising network, taking advantage of connections I've fostered over the years with professors, with upper class students, has been really indispensable in helping me navigate the open curriculum, because I think navigating it alone can be very daunting, but the more you kind of take advantage of the resources Brown has offered you, really facilitates that navigation.
Thank you. That's excellent, Avery. And your thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize what Sydney was saying. She really made a great point about using the open curriculum as kind of self-growth. I really struggled not really knowing what I wanted to study, and I felt like I didn't really have that much direction, which ultimately I thought was amazing because I got to take classes in a ton of different disciplines my first 2 years. But then when it came to kind of declaring my concentration, I was a little nervous, but declaring that concentration and kind of figuring out what I value and what I value and what I like academically, but also kind of relating to non-academically in college with that kind of concentration declaration process was super impactful for me, and I think my academic journey. I would also say what is super unique about Brown is that everyone is kind of on their own path, doing their own things, which kind of creates a really supportive, non-competitive environment. My friends all have different passions, and even though we may take 1 or 2 courses together for fun, we're kind of ultimately all on our own journey, and that can create a super supportive environment that I think is really unique to Brown.
Thank you. I'm going to try and get a few quick ones in before we wrap up. But Avery, can you talk about when the earliest a student could contact their Meiklejohn is? Is it okay to email them as soon as they get that assignment in August?
So yeah, maybe Dean Montgomery, I'm not exactly sure how these assignments are going to work this year. When you get them in August, your Meiklejohn should be reaching out, but you are also free to reach out to your Meiklejohn. You also learn a little bit more about your Meiklejohn because in Ask, you receive a letter detailing their interests, what they're involved in, and their contact information. So hopefully that should include their email or their phone number. So feel free to reach out to your Meiklejohn whenever you get that information. We're super receptive to questions, and we've all been there before, and we're really excited to we're really excited when people reach out, is basically in sum.
Dean Montgomery, anything to add there?
Nope, that was perfect.
Awesome. And Sydney, I'll ask you this one about first year seminars. How does that fit into the schedule? Is that considered a class or something that's extracurricular?
Yeah, so first year seminar is a class. You receive enrollment or course credit for enrolling in the class. Um, they usually, as a seminar, they usually are like 2.5 hour blocks that meet once a week, usually. Sometimes it can depend. Um, I will highly, highly plug first year seminars. I think that was one of the best decisions I made as a first year. You get to have a really intimate connection with a professor. You get to kind of learn, meet other first years in, that like safe, intimate, close-knit community. The first year seminar does not have to be related to your potential academic endeavors. In fact, sometimes if it's not, that is even better. You're exploring a new academic subject and discipline. So if you're considering first year seminars, definitely consider it, register for it. You never know what happens.
Great, thank you. Dean Montgomery, we had a question about entrance exams, and this one is specifically about chemistry, but just about entrance exams and other things of that nature. When will students hear about that? If they're concerned, any advice on that?
So that's similar to the language requirement. When I wrap up, I'll find the link and I'll put it in the chat. We encourage you to reach out to the departments that oversee those I lost my train of thought, that oversee that process. And they will be able to tell you about timelines and when you'll receive notification about what you're looking for. Give me a second.
Great, thank you. All right, so we're gonna wrap up. And my final question to everybody is gonna be your top tip for these parents and families, and I think there are a few students on here too. So if you could give our audience your top tip for getting ready. We've got about a little over a month before school starts. How would you approach these final weeks before arriving on campus? And before you answer, or while you're answering, I'm going to put in the chat a survey for the audience to fill out for us so we can continue to improve these webinars and our ability to get you information that you need. So I'll put that in the chat. Let's start with Avery, and then we'll go to Sydney and then Dean Montgomery.
So yeah, my biggest piece of advice, besides maybe exploring courses at Brown a little bit and getting in touch with your roommate over email, if you haven't already, because I know first years got those pretty early, my biggest advice would be don't stress, don't do anything, spend time relaxing with your family and friends at home. I primarily just spent my last few weeks of summer hanging out with my home friends, hanging out with my family, because you won't see them for a long time. And it's really nice to be able to have that support when you come home and just all the time throughout your life. So that would be my suggestion. I wouldn't stress about doing too much else besides maybe checking your emails. I know that freshmen this year have so many resources available to them about orientation and pre-orientation programs, and are receiving emails each week and about this kind of stuff. So checking your email is also a really great tip.
All right, thank you so much, Avery. Sydney.
I totally agree with everything Avery says. Definitely spend time with your family, kind of cherish those last moments. I will also say 2 additional things. One is definitely don't be afraid to utilize social media resources. we live in the digital age, so social media is one of the best resources at your disposal, especially for students, just to kind of get acclimated to different resources at Brown and meet new people, first years students at Brown. Definitely don't be afraid to utilize those resources. I will also say, secondly, if possible, if you can still sign up for pre-orientation events, I would definitely recommend doing that. I think that's a great way to kind of acclimate yourself to Brown before the rest of the however many students in your class come onto campus. Yeah.
All right, and Dean Montgomery.
My first piece of advice, I think, is to rest. Rest is radical and revolutionary. And if you have an opportunity to do that before you start and embark on this journey, I encourage you to prioritize your rest. Second thing is we encourage students to go ahead and try putting some courses in your cart, some things that you're interested in. That's how your advisor at Meiklejohn will be talking with you about those courses that you have in your cart, sort of kind of doing some investigative conversations just to kind of see what areas interest you and perhaps why you select those courses. And so that's a great indication of some of the interests that you may have. And just to know that we are thinking about you, we are anticipating your arrival, we are preparing for your arrival. And so I know that you all may have a lot of questions and anxieties and concerns, and that is very natural. But just know that we are thinking about you, we are anticipating your arrival, and we're preparing for you to be here. And so I hope that you all feel that once you move in.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sydney and Avery and Dean Montgomery. This has been really informative, and I am grateful for your time, as well as all of our audience members here today. I'm sorry if we didn't get to your question, but you can send it to family@brown.edu. If I don't have the answer, I can get it to somebody who does. So please reach out. And for everyone, wherever you are in the world, have a great rest of your day. Thank you.